Well, it's been a day of protests near Wits University. The Independent Police Investigative Directorate is investigating the death of a 35-year-old man. Police fired rubber bullets and stun grenades at students at least twice on Wednesday. The students say they want all deserving students to get a place. They say the police were heavy-handed and brutal in their response. Well, eNCA senior reporter Aviwe Mtila has been on that story all day. He's just got back to the studio and joins me now. Aviwe, thank you very much for joining us. You, of course, have been out at Wits watching developments. I think we should start with that first dramatic flashpoint moment. Our colleague Nkosazana Dambuza was there when police, and she says without any warning, opened fire with stun grenades and rubber bullets. Let's take a look at that moment.
Students are... Yuveka?
Indeed.
Rubber bullets are going off, police.
All right, and Nkosazana,
And the rocks?
we'll just let you get to a... We'll let you get to a safe spot, and if you're able to continue chatting, then we will get back to you. That's what's happening at student protest.
I'm still here.
All right, are you able to chat to us?
So police are now just trying. Yes, police are trying to disperse the students who were, in fact, had blocked the corner of Jan Smuts Avenue and Jurison Street here in the Joburg CBD. There are rocks that are flying. Students are throwing rocks from every direction. They're actually now police are firing back with rubber bullets and stun grenades at the moment. They are trying to disperse them. We see there's a police nyala also that's arriving just behind me. Yeah.
All right.
But yeah, in fact, as you said in your intro, Yuveka, students are just calling for no one to be excluded due to financial reasons.
All right.
But I'll come back to you in studio.
All right.
All right, so that happened, I think, around 11 o'clock on Wednesday morning, and Nkosazana was caught up in that. She's spoken to us about her experiences and saying that in the run-up to that event, there was no warning from police that she heard, certainly, and that police started first, that they started with the stun grenades and the rubber bullets, and then students started throwing rocks and stones. What can you tell us about that event? We know that tragically a 35-year-old man, not linked in any way to the protests, who was coming out of a clinic, it seems was hit by rubber bullets and died.
Certainly, the death of that gentleman, 35-year-old, was confirmed by his doctor, the doctor that he came from. As he was walking out, he was met by those rubber bullets and sadly lost his life. If you were to see the visuals of what happened and speaking to the witnesses on the ground of how it happened, describing how police, even after the gentleman tried to show some form of doctor's note saying that I am from the doctor, they still continued to shoot. It was the theme of the day, as we saw ourselves, where police just give no warnings and just proceed to disperse even students with their hands up on the air, disperse them by using force in the form of rubber bullets and stun grenades.
Did you, and we're going to look at that clip of what happened on Empire Road, but did you get a chance to ask the police why they didn't shout out a warning? Because that is supposed to be protocol as far as I understand.
It is supposed to be protocol, and it's a similar incident that we've been seeing in a lot of protests. Some of them, for example, last year, Nathaniel Julius losing his life. I took it up to one of the police officers who was giving instructions on the ground just to fire shots randomly, even towards journalists, which we took it on air. A similar behavior that we're seeing from police once again, where they're not really questioning what's happening, but coming there with force, with their only motive being to disperse the crowd. What we failed in doing and in trying to do is get comment from the police in terms of even the fatality that happened and just their conduct, which is seemingly of that of a careless nature that we're picking up.
Well, look, certainly we have failed as well. We've been trying to get hold of the police, and the police ministry has said they're not going to speak formally about this until IPID has done its investigation. I think many would say that the pictures do not look good and that it does warrant a response as soon as possible from the police. But let's go now to that incident that you were live on air. You talked us through what was happening on Empire Road. And for those of you who don't know Johannesburg, Empire Road is one of the busiest multi-laned roads in Johannesburg. And students had moved down there. It's very close to Wits. Let's take a look at what happened.
If another casualty happens, you must witness this. This is them coming to us. This is how the approach has been from the beginning.
And then we're just going to move behind the policeman now.
as they move closer to the students. Students, hands up in the air, showing that they're peaceful at this stage, and the police are moving forward. I'm going to try to get closer. Grenades, stun grenades, and they're firing. The police are firing. Students running away. Stunt grenade, we heard they're going off. The students are now scattered in every direction. While the police moving even a bit closer, they're at the place where they were. Police Nyala's coming closer, and Police Nyala's moving closer to the action now. Running down Empire Road at this very moment. And the police are looking for them. They're going.
Aviwa, that happened at around 3 o'clock on Wednesday afternoon, so you've had a few hours to process what happened. Just looking at the way the police were walking, they didn't seem ready for anything. And I'm wondering if there was a lack of coordination. I hope that we get to the bottom of this. You did explain to me earlier that there were a lot of police vehicles and police officers standing to the left of the screen, and that, it seems, is where the stun grenades came from. Tell us what your thoughts are now that you look back at that.
And we were on one side of the street, might I mention. The visuals that you're seeing are only from the oncoming side of the street. There's the other side that we didn't show you. And on our side of the street, there were at least 2 police Nyalas with a lot of police fans, at least about 7 of them. I'm actually seeing this for the first time from the action in itself, and it really triggered something in me. I mean, just the carelessness. You see how brazen they're walking towards the crowd. The students had their hands up on the air, signaling that they're not going to fight with the police. They're willing to hear the police out. But there wasn't any communication of any form towards the students. They just got there, threw a stun grenade, dispersing the crowd, continuing firing shots. Even later down on Empire Road, we saw a number of students who were wounded. There's a lady who suffered 2 bullet wounds, rubber bullet wounds, essentially, one on the leg, one on the arm, crying, essentially. And we also saw a tussle between one of the students who were resisting arrest at that moment, but eventually forced into a police Nyala. So quite disturbing scenes, Sally. Yeah,
and it's interesting. You say you've had quite an emotional reaction seeing it. You've just gone off-site, so the adrenaline is starting to drop, and you're going... And I think the worrying thing is that earlier in the day, it may well emerge that rubber bullets caused the death of that 35-year-old man, but rubber bullets were immediately fired again in a second situation, knowing that they could be deadly. And I think that it's concerning if there isn't a plan. It's concerning if it wasn't coordinated and controlled, because we all remember what happened at Marikana. And that lives with all of us, that lives in all of our psyches, that so quickly can something go so terribly, terribly wrong. What are the questions that police are going to have to answer after this?
I guess the big one is, why are they just firing rubber bullets or stun grenades to students who are seated peacefully at that very moment? Yes, there may have been chaotic scenes where cars were being stopped on their tracks. You understand the nature of protest. There were tires that were burnt, there were bricks layered everywhere, and cars were being turned around. But once the police got there, they should have at least spoken to the students, told them to disperse. Normally they have those loud hailers where they speak out and tell them, okay, we're giving you so-and-so time to evacuate this area, just to then get traffic going and flowing again. But the crux of the matter is that they didn't communicate whatsoever with the students on the ground, no matter the situation that may have ensued before. But the students at that very moment, as they were approaching, were peaceful, seated, and with their hands up in the air.
Now, as it comes to the actual issue itself, we know that the students are deciding what they're going to do on Thursday. There have been suggestions they might call for a nationwide stay away or nationwide university protest, but it's not yet clear what's going to happen. But we all know that these students are really just asking for what President Jacob Zuma in 2017 promised South Africa. He said, we will bring you free higher education for poor and working class families. And obviously, times are very difficult. We know from Wits that they've done all they can. They've set up a hardship fund to try and provide for students. But still, there are a number of students who don't have the money, and they are deserving. Putting aside for a moment the way the police have handled this issue, What do you think is it going to take to solve this peacefully? Because what we don't want is another fees must fall, weeks of protests.
So the students are calling for engagements. Even today, they were saying that, hear us out, Minister Plain Zamande. For example, they're saying that first years, there needs to be some sort of funding for first years. And in fact, debt should be scrapped out as a whole, because that promise was made, as we mentioned, by former President Jacob Zuma. So they're calling for government to stick to the promise. And essentially, they're saying that if they're not adhered to, we could see a national shutdown. Tomorrow, we understand there are protests in Pretoria that will be happening from as early as 8 o'clock. We understand there could be similar protests as we'll be keeping tabs with the students throughout the evening just to find out what is going to happen. But we do know that the South African the SAUS, a body that represents all the SRCs in the country across the 26 universities, took out a statement with 15 demands, and one of those demands was around the funding and debt, previous historic debt, essentially. So they're saying that if those 15 demands aren't met, they themselves, as SAUS, will call for a national shutdown from Friday, the 13th of March.
Wits University alone says it's owed R1 billion and it simply cannot afford to give any more. It will collapse the university. Do you think that's a real danger here?
Money is a real danger. We spoke to Wits over the weekend where they even suggested that a lot of them, they've tried to accommodate a lot of the students. They're making initiatives. They're saying that if you owe less than 10,000 Rand, you are allowed to register. But if you owe more, you could even pay 50% of what you owe in order to register. But the money is a concern, really. Universities have to be run on money, but the students are saying that we were promised free education, and I even spoke to some of the students at ground while they're saying that a lot has been taken away historically from their parents. They are at a disadvantage because you would understand Wits opened the lectures on Monday, opened a lot of those lectures online, but a lot of first-year students don't have laptops, so they're crying foul, how are we going to access this education and the lectures that are already online? So it looks like it's benefiting the more privileged, you know. So those are some of the issues that they were raising on the student, and it's a real conundrum, really, because students need, universities need that money, while students saying that we don't have the money, yet promises have been made already.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be interesting to hear what comes out of that higher education briefing, which we understand is due to happen on Thursday. I just want to thank you for your excellent level-headed reporting during an extremely stressful day, really bringing the important news stories to our screen. Thank you so much, Senior Reporter Aviwe Mtila.